The elevator doors slid shut with a soft chime, the chrome buttons gleaming beneath the bright lights. My parents stood beside me, immaculate in their designer clothes, but restless, uncomfortable, out of place. My father checked his Omega watch for the third time in as many minutes, while my mother fussed with the end of her Hermès scarf, twisting it around her fingers like she had since I was a child. Camila Torres, she began, her voice carrying that familiar edge of disapproval. Are you absolutely sure you want us to see your office? We could just have lunch at the club instead. I smiled faintly. The club, where they'd once told friends their daughter was experimenting with a startup that would surely fail, where rumors now whispered that I was in financial trouble. Funny how quickly concern appears when pride is at stake. You'll want to see this, Mom, I said, pressing the button marked Penthouse. Penthouse? My father gave a short, incredulous laugh. Sweetheart, I think you hit the wrong floor. Your little tech project doesn't. The elevator began its smooth ascent through the Rivera Tower, one of downtown Miami's most coveted addresses. 3 years ago, when I walked out of his law firm, Torres Associates, to build a fintech company from scratch, he'd called it betrayal. You're throwing away a legacy, he'd thundered. He was right, in a way. I threw away his legacy to build my own. Remember that idea I pitched? I said as the floor numbers blinked higher. The one you called absurd? The predictive trading app you said would never work? Dad scoffed. Don't tell me you're still wasting time on that hobby. Mom placed a pitying hand on my arm. Honey, your father still has a position for you at the firm. Junior partner, something secure. Before I could answer, the elevator stopped at the 20th floor. A young executive stepped in, eyes glued to his tablet. When he finally looked up, his expression shifted to surprise and admiration. Ms. Torres, I didn't know you were in today. That investor pitch yesterday was phenomenal. My parents froze. Thanks, Daniel, I replied smoothly. How's the beta launch? Better than projected, ma'am. The algorithm's outperforming every model on the market. 5 major banks are already negotiating licenses. You've started a revolution. He exited at the next floor, leaving behind a silence thick enough to touch. Mom's hand slipped away. Dad's jaw tightened, the muscle near his temple twitching. As we ascended toward the top, I could feel their disbelief mounting. They were trying, desperately, to reconcile the daughter they'd underestimated with the woman leading them to a penthouse in her own tower. My father's voice was faint now, uncertain. Camila, what exactly is going on? I turned to him, calm and steady. Remember when I said I was building something that would change the financial world? An AI system that could predict market shifts better than any human analyst? He let out a hollow laugh. That fantasy? Your words, I said softly. That same fantasy now manages portfolios worth over $60 billion. Mom's voice cracked. 60 billion? But that's not why I brought you here, I continued as the elevator slowed. When the company scaled, I needed a headquarters worthy of our growth. And this tower? Ding. The doors parted. Sunlight flooded in, washing over marble floors and glass walls that framed the glittering Miami skyline. A mahogany desk dominated the space, and behind it, mounted in sleek chrome letters, were the words, Torres Global, where AI meets finance. I stepped out, my heels clicking against the marble. Welcome to my building. Mom's composure fractured. Your building? You own all 62 floors? I nodded. Would you like a tour? We can start with my tiny office, right here in the penthouse. Dad's color rose. But Rivera Tower belongs to Torres Global. I finished for him. My company, named after Abuela Torres, the one who told me to dream beyond the family firm. He stared at me, lost for words. You've only been gone 3 years. 3 years, 4 months, and 22 days. I corrected with a smile. And yes, it's been productive. A gentle knock broke the silence. My assistant, Leela, entered with a tablet. Ms. Torres, JP Morgan is on line 1 about the licensing deal, and the governor's office confirmed dinner for tomorrow. Push JP Morgan to 3. I'll return the governor's call after lunch, I said, without looking away from my parents. Leela nodded and slipped out quietly. Dad sank into a leather chair, eyes wide and vacant, staring at the skyline that reflected in the glass, his reflection dwarfed by the empire he never saw coming. Mom stayed standing, her eyes darting around the office as if she were searching for cracks in the illusion, some proof that this wasn't real. But it was, every inch of it. And for the first time in years, I was the one holding all the power. The merger, my father murmured, almost to himself. They're reporting it on CNBC. That's you? I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of the moment settle. For years, I'd sat across from him in his office, listening to him dissect my ideas like they were childish fantasies. Too risky, too ambitious, too different. Yes, I said calmly, that merger is mine. We're acquiring Thomson Financial's AI division. I paused, letting that sink in before adding softly, poetic, isn't it? Considering they rejected my job application 4 years ago. A flick of my hand brought the holographic console to life. Financial figures, market charts, and global trend lines shimmered across the air like constellations. Would you like to see the numbers? Mom finally spoke, her voice thin and disbelieving. But at Christmas last year, you said you were still figuring things out. You wore that old blazer, the one you said made you look like an intern. A quiet laugh escaped me. I wore it deliberately, just like I kept my old apartment, drove that dented car, and worked from a small office on the 15th floor. I needed to know that my success was real, that it didn't depend on either of you. Dad's jaw flexed, the lawyer in him resurfacing. But why keep it from us, Camila? Do you realize how many opportunities, how many deals, we could have? I cut him off, my voice sharp, precise. That's exactly why. Every opportunity at Torres Associates came because of you. Every door opened under your name. I wanted something that was mine, earned, not inherited. Mom tried again, her tone gentler this time. But surely, after the first year, when things started going well. You mean when I shattered every market projection? I said, walking toward the glass wall overlooking Biscayne Bay. The sunlight burned gold across the skyline. That first year, our AI made a prediction no human analyst saw coming. Our investors earned a 500% return in a week. I turned, my voice gaining an edge, and that same week, I heard you at the club, Dad, telling the Hamiltons how worried you were about me, how I'd come crawling back for a junior role. He flushed. We were concerned. No, I said evenly. You were embarrassed. Your Harvard-educated daughter wasn't following the family script. So I let you believe I was struggling, while building the system that's now rewriting global finance. I tapped the desk, and the glass wall behind me came alive, screens cascading with real-time market data, AI-driven forecasts, and streaming tickers from every major exchange. Our AI doesn't just predict markets, I said, it understands them. It learns patterns no analyst could ever see. I met his eyes. Every major institution uses our system now. A pause, then the strike. Including Torres Associates. His head jerked up. What? Check your firm's trading software, I said smoothly. See who licenses it. He fumbled for his phone, hands trembling. I leaned back against the desk, letting a small, knowing smile curve at my lips. And trust me, you'll want to hear what I told my father next. Hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss what happens when the truth lands. I straightened. You've been using my technology for the past year, Dad. Those record profits you bragged about at the country club? I tilted my head. You're welcome. He looked pale now, his disbelief collapsing into something raw. That's impossible. The Rivera algorithm, I said. He repeated it under his breath, stunned. Named after Anula Rivera? Yes, I said gently. Your chief technology officer was thrilled when he discovered who he'd been negotiating with, but I made confidentiality part of the deal. Mom sank into a chair, her flawless composure finally cracking. All those nights at the yacht club, she whispered, trying to find you a man who could support you. I laughed, a sharp, gleaming sound that sliced through the quiet. Like Peter Thomson? The same Peter Thomson whose company I'm buying today? Yes, that was a fun evening. And then, a soft chime. Leela's voice came through the intercom, calm and composed. Miss Torres, the board members are arriving for the quarterly meeting. Also, Mr. Ramirez from Forbes is here for your cover interview. Outside, the faint hum of helicopter blades drifted across Biscayne Bay, likely news crews circling for a glimpse of the Rivera Tower, waiting to capture the story of the year. Dad was still glued to his phone, scrolling through headlines that all bore the same name. Torres Global acquires Thomson Financial in $180 billion deal. Meet Camila Torres, the woman redefining AI in finance. Mom had abandoned her practiced composure. Her hands trembled as she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, a tiny crack in the flawless image she'd spent decades perfecting. "The board is waiting," I said, standing. "You're welcome to stay, if you'd like to see how your reckless little girl runs a multi-billion-dollar empire." "Camila," Dad's voice broke, fragile and unsteady. "Your company's valuation," I said lightly, "is 10 times larger than Torres Associates." The elevator doors opened to the top-floor boardroom, an expanse of glass and light, the Miami skyline glittering beyond. The long table gleamed, surrounded by some of the most powerful figures in global finance, men and women who now rose to greet me with genuine respect. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, stepping inside, "you might recognize my guests, Robert and Elena Torres. They're here to observe." A ripple of polite smiles moved through the room. In high society, my story had been rumor. In finance, it was legend. For the next hour, my parents sat in stunned silence as I led discussions that shaped global markets, mergers worth billions, AI-driven forecasts, decisions that shifted economies. Every voice deferred to mine. When the meeting ended and the executives filed out with handshakes and congratulations, Dad finally spoke, quietly, almost broken. "Why didn't you tell us?" I smiled faintly. "Because you already decided who I was. You thought ambition without your name behind it was foolish. That innovation was too risky. That AI was just a fad." Mom's voice trembled. "We were wrong. So terribly wrong." "The funny thing is," I said, walking toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Biscayne Bay, "I tried to tell you. Remember that dinner 3 years ago? I talked about predictive algorithms, AI-driven finance." Mom lowered her gaze, and we changed the subject to the Hamilton's son. I laughed softly. "Exactly." Dad sighed. "Honestly, I didn't understand half of what you said that night." "No," I said, turning to face him. "You didn't try to understand. That's the difference." The intercom buzzed again. "Miss Torres," Leela's calm voice announced, "the Forbes team is ready for your interview." "Give me a minute," I said, then turned back to my parents. "I have a cover story to shoot, but before you go, there's something you should see." I handed Dad a sleek black folder. He opened it and froze. "You're buying Torres Associates." His hands shook as he flipped through the pages. "Market value plus 20%, I said evenly. "You can merge under Torres Global and thrive, or keep trying to compete against the AI system that's already rewriting the rules." Mom stared at me, her mask completely gone. "You'd buy your own father's firm?" "Business isn't personal," I said, tilting my head. "Isn't that what you always taught me?" For the first time, I saw something unfamiliar in my father's eyes, respect. "When do you need an answer?" he asked, voice steady again, like a man speaking to an equal. "Take your time," I said, slipping on my jacket. "We'll discuss it over dinner, at my penthouse next door. The one you never visited because you assumed I couldn't afford proper housing." Mom blinked. "You own that building too?" "Among others," I said with a faint smile. "Amazing what you can buy when your AI predicts markets with 99.9% accuracy." Leela appeared at the doorway. "Miss Torres, the photographer is ready." "Coming." I turned back to my parents. "The choice is yours. Join the future, or stay in the past. Either way, I've proven my point." As they moved toward the elevator, still clutching the folder, Dad hesitated. "That Christmas party, when you wore that old blazer, you'd already bought this tower, hadn't you?" "Yes," I said simply. "Signed the papers that morning." He shook his head, a quiet mix of pride and regret shadowing his face. "We missed so much of your journey." "You did," I said softly, "but maybe now, you can be part of what comes next." The elevator doors closed on their stunned expressions. I straightened, the skyline gleaming in the glass ahead of me. Tomorrow's headlines would carry my name across the world, but today's victory meant more. Today, my parents finally saw me. Because success isn't only in the billions you earn or the towers you own, it's in proving that the dream they dismissed was never impossible. As I stepped toward the waiting Forbes crew, the camera lights flaring around me, I thought of that tiny 15th floor office I still keep untouched, a reminder that every empire begins with one room, and the courage to believe when no one else does. Voiceover outro, YouTube style. If you've made it this far, I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my place? Would you have hidden your success until the perfect moment, or shouted it from the rooftops the day you made it? Be honest. I'll be reading your comments. And if my story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Not just to see what happens next, but to remind yourself that the unexpected path often leads to extraordinary destinations. Your support helps me share more stories of resilience, ambition, and poetic justice. Before you go, here's my advice. Never let someone else's doubts become your truth. The world will tell you what's safe, what's possible, what's expected. Ignore it. Dream bigger. Work quietly. Let your results speak louder than any opinion. Because when they finally see what you've built, it'll already be too late for them to doubt you. Now, subscribe, comment, and remember, your story isn't over yet. Make it one worth telling.